Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning and good evening as well. For those who are watching after the recording, we are live on YouTube right now and also on Zoom. I would like to thank all the participants who are here already with us and all the participants who will speak today. So we have some important information here on the event because we have a limited number of people for the ones who need the translation. So if you want the simultaneous translation in 3 languages, you can go on our website and register yourself on the event so you can receive the link to get into Zoom, because on Zoom you can have the simultaneous translation. On YouTube, you can put the captions in automatic translation, but it's not the best option, but it is an option. And I also ask you to register and to sign our attendance list. And the ending or the ending of our event is to finish at 4:00 p.m. Brazil time. And the questions you can put also on the YouTube chat or the Zoom chat, and the questions will be sent to the coordinators of our event. And in the end, we're gonna have these questions. And I hope we can strengthen ourselves in this work about education, mining, and climate changes. And I'm gonna also present a little bit about the moderator of this day, this Congress. So Daniela is here again. She's a colleague, she's a fighter, a woman, a professor, and we are here together, me representing the University of Minas Gerais, and she's also a representative of University of Minas Gerais. And I invite you to read her thesis. Yesterday, she talked a little bit about her thesis that work a little bit with these questions of mining and education. I'm gonna put there on the chat for you so you can check Daniela's work. So I open here now the second day of this event, the international event, the Symposium on Education, Mining, and Climate Changing. And I'm gonna present you now our moderator, our chosen moderator. He was chosen really carefully. He has lots of qualities. He's also worked with mining researchers. He has this approach, his proper approach. So Bruno Milanese, thank you for being here. He is a professor at the University of Rio de Janeiro. He has a master's on the University of Rio de Janeiro as well, and a doctorate degrees on FUVEST. He's a student of geography and in the Department of Mechanics and Engineering in the University of Juiz de Fora. So Bruno is going to be the mediator here today to add to this event the quality that we want to have. And he's representing the group here, Politics, Economy, and Mining in Society, which is the name Poemas in Portuguese. And besides researches, academic research, he's also developing partnerships with NGOs and social movements, and the communities that suffer and have the effect of the mining activities. So if you want to learn more about Bruno, you can access his social medias. So you can check www.ufjf-poemas. So Bruno, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. I don't know you. So we read a lot about what you think, what you do. So it's a pleasure to have you here. Lusandra, thank you very much for this invitation. It's very pleasant to be here and to participate on this event and to mediate this table with you guys. And I'm gonna be together with many special people here today. We're gonna have a little bit of an inversion on the order here, the presentation order, because of technical issues. So we're gonna start first with Mauricio Iacona. He's the director of Futuquara, an association of Yanomami, and he's also the assistant of the association of COVID. And then after, we're gonna receive Ataíde Mota. He represents the WIBASI. And then after that, we're gonna have Paulo Rodrigues. He's a geologist, doctor on mining and geology. And he's also a researcher of the Technological Center of Nuclear Technology. And to close this presentation today, so a speaker who will talk will be José Maria do Rosário. He's talking from Mozambique. He represents the Eduardo Mondlane in Mozambique, and he's a master's in Mozambique as well, and a moderator of climate changing. So each one of them will have around 15 minutes to present their speech, and we're gonna have a time for questions in the end. And after the fourth speaker, we're gonna come back again to receive the questions and see the questions there. So I'm gonna invite Mauricio to come.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for inviting me to this seminar about mining and climate change. My name is Mauricio Iacona. I'm one of the directors of the Yanomami Association. I've been with the board of directors since 2008, this indigenous movement. People have been following the situation that is happening in the Yanomami land. We are under constant attack from the illegal invaders in our land. And recently, in this administration, our current president, this practice of invading Yanomami land and other indigenous lands has been encouraged. During the pandemic, we have worked in a project, but it was very hard. We weren't unable to move around freely. So we thought that making our campaign go out on social media would be important to make it viable. So we have engaged many followers in the social media. This was one of our first challenges during the COVID pandemic. Our goal, our target was to reach 150,000 followers. And we were able to do that. And then we extended our goal to 400,000, and we nearly reached that at the end. There was a report issued together with the Institute for Social Environment and Studies, which was done throughout the COVID pandemics, to study and survey what was encouraging people to mine illegally in our land. We noticed, however, that it wasn't enough to denounce and to go to Brasilia and ask the federal police and the IBAMA, the federal body responsible for the environment. That wasn't enough. We are against mining, and we are against the gold mining activities. We had to show our strength in order to highlight all these illegal activities. So we started a project called the Yanomamis Under Siege. And the ex-president Lula came to see us in our settlement in Brasilia. And he welcomed us. And the first thing he said was that once elected, the first thing he would try to do was to move these illegal gold miners away from our land. This was also sent to several embassies. And after that, I was even able to go abroad. I was invited to go to Germany, to Bonn, to a book launch, which was done in English. I also went to London to an exposition of Sebastião Salgado, the photographer. Last month, I was in Brussels. I met the president of the European Union. And I went to an assembly with all the European parliamentarians, and they reassured me of their support. They also very aware of the consequences that this illegal mining brings. So I also delivered that report to the commissioner of in the United Nations. So the most pressing matter is that our indigenous land suffers greatly with mercury contamination. But in order to prove that there is such contamination, we ask for people who work with these issues, and with the support of Congresswoman Joanna, we were able to get the permission for this experts to come and do this work for us. But we had to inform several federal institutions, including the Federal Prosecution Service, that we were going to do this. But we don't understand why FUNAI, which is the agency for protecting indigenous people, would interfere with this. We are only thinking of the health of our people, primarily the children. This contamination goes throughout the entire body of our people, and there are very high levels of contamination, particularly of those people who live very near the illegal mining sites. And this is one of the challenges that we face today. It's also a problem because we mustn't start a war against our own young, but some of them are being bribed and enticed by the illegal mining. And this is what I would like to speak about. The Yanomami people are against this illegal mining in our land. And we are always struggling. We have this struggle, this ongoing struggle against the illegal mining in our land. But also other indigenous people in the Amazon. During the study I mentioned, we could observe that it was always the same companies that are involved in this illegal mining. And they also present in other indigenous peoples' territories. This is our main issue, and that's what we fight against. We want to show our strength and our resistance to this illegal activity in our ancestral land. And this is it. I am here ready to answer any questions that you may have. But just to emphasize our struggle against this illegal mining. I think that, thank you, Mauricio, this is very important for us to understand how much you need to start movements and to get people informed about your struggle, and how much the lack of any support, any sort of official support hurts your people. And I just want to emphasize that we all admire you and your people for that. Following on, we will invite Ataide to the floor. He is going to speak about the national size or emphasis of mining and impact on the environment, particularly in Brazil. Welcome, Ataide. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. I want to say thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure being here. I will try to contribute to this debate from eBasis' point of view. We prepared this paper that was published in 2021. And we want to combine the issue of climate change with the issue of mining. It is a difficult term, but it's also very important. But it is important that we explain to people what is the connection between these two issues. In order to write this paper, we started from a base of the Latin American extracting activities industry. I don't know a term in Portuguese to describe it, but just to describe it, it's a kind of document that will guide production and kind of a guide of how to drive you down a particular theme. The extraction industry activity in Latin America is described in a type of guidelines. It is in Spanish, but it is available for anyone who wants to read it. These are, in fact, tools for people to explore this issue further. We wanted something very experimental, and we wanted to understand the connections between the issue, not only mining, but the whole industry and climate change. Also, petrol and gas. We know they had a greater contribution to climate change, and mining to a lesser degree. But even though the mining industry contributes less with climate change, it is no less important. It's full of contradictions. It's a lot of wealth for very few people. And there's abuse and neglect of nature with deforestation and human rights violation. I am talking quite fast because I am worried about the time. So even though mining contributes to a lesser degree to climate change, it is despite this, it is a very important issue. We discovered when preparing for this seminar that since 2021, there is a great difficulty in assessing data and any reliable numbers and statistics. The numbers are just not that recent. The data we used from 2018 have unfortunately already changed. And the data that we get from institutions that watch and record about climate change shows us that the data has more than doubled. And we can estimate that these days, the mining industry contributes with 5% of all the negative effects of climate change. And this is a very big impact. And it has doubled in percentual measures. And this shows that this is an industry that is out of control. The measures that are being taken are not yet showing any results. We must continue. The industries, they write glossy reports on how they protect the environment, but in practice, this is not working. We also have to talk about public policy for the mining industry. So, with all the information we collected about the mining impacting on environmental change, we can lobby to make public policy reflect on the need for change, both at all levels, federal, state level, and local levels. In Brazil, the states that contribute the most for the emission of greenhouse gases, from the 5 states, 4 of them are very strong in the mining industry. One of them is Minas Gerais. When we published this document in 2021, there was no state policy on mining. But beyond having these policies, we must ensure that there is room for society at large to participate in policy making. And there is some kind of social control over the mining industries. But this has not been happening in this current Bolsonaro administration. Any control measures were extremely limited, in fact. And any activities or any protecting activities were done via protests. There are measures that are written in the environment legislation. We have provisions for people to be consulted, but if we think about this, all this process were very weak, and they would not bring the results or the effects that we need in a sustainable manner. The public audiences, for example, weren't organized. And all we had really was the public in protests. So we have this industry that is well known for all these contradictions. And when we have this report now that talks about the policy making, we must emphasize that there is a need for this policy to be more involving, to involve people to participate in the policy making. One of the things that we intend to do is to ensure that the drafting and the debating of this policy happens with the participation of society at state and federal levels. Another failure that we found in this state policies is that even though some states do have some mitigation policies in place, particular measures for adaptation to climate change are not really applicable or realistic. This will bring us several problems. And the governmental bodies are limited in what they can do. But independent from, apart from the reason for all this lack in the policy, we need involvement from the civil organization and the society at large to think about these policies and to debate, to actually debate what impact this mining industry is having in the environment at large, as well as on the population. Just to make something clear, I want to say that it's important to say that the contribution that this industry bring to the climate change impact is because they heavily rely on fossil fuel to operate. We must insist that they use more electrical supplies of energy other than fossil fuel as they do, but this is not happening at the moment. Both in processing the ore as when extracting the ore, these industries are contributing heavily to climate change. Also, there is the transport of the ore. There must be some kind of process for us to make this more fuel efficient. These materials are transported long routes, and they contribute to greenhouse gases emissions, of course. So taking in consideration all these weaknesses in this process, we really do need to get everyone in Brazil to get together to discuss and debate what is necessary to change this situation. There are several movements to get together and discuss how this industry works. And we need a new model. Some sectors in the Brazilian society, civil organization, are asking for us to end fracking or to think of different forms of getting energy. We know we are at the very limit of what we can do regarding energy. I think I'm nearly running out of time here, but we need to talk about transitioning. We know that Brazil has mineral reserves of minerals that are strategic to the transition, like the rare earths. But these minerals should be taken or extracted from our land in a different way to how we mining iron, for example, these days. But I fear that they will be done at the same way, that is in a dirty and using water resources which are very important to the environment. So they won't be done in a good way. I think we need to leave this model behind. And we must strive for clean energy. We need a radical change. We won't be able to to make progress in our debates against the climate question unless we also talk about environmental destruction. So this is what I wanted to say, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you. Thank you, Ataide, for your words. It's very important to talk about what the Bolsonaro government did. And these have been very questionable measures.
They are receiving a favorable treatment on this government side. So this is a good debate and a popular participation. especially using this part of the discourse that you said as being part of the strategy, as you said. And this that you speak about the transitioning of energetic resources is important as well. So how can we deal with this stimulation of Amazonia deforestation to have mining and to have this, to not have this impact on climate change? So it doesn't feel very logic to put on these terms. So it's very important to get deeper on this discussion, more than just a technological issue, but also the reflections are really important. So thank you so much. So just to remind you, some information for you. Our event, our symposium is being transmitted by YouTube, but YouTube doesn't have the simultaneous translation. So whoever is on YouTube and wants to have the simultaneous translation, they have to register yourself on Instagram of Edumite, and then you can have the option to access Zoom. And besides that, in the end, they're gonna have the certificates issuing, and it will be released in the end of the speeches. So just to remind you, you can make questions. We are here on the background getting the questions. You can make them on the chat on YouTube and on Zoom. And if you have any questions, any doubts, you can reach us and contact us, the organizers, on Edumite website or Instagram and Facebook, which is at Edumite UFMG. You can have access to all the speakers and everything that is happening here. So changing a little bit the scale now. So getting out of this broad Brazil's panorama, we're going to talk about the iron ore quadrangle. And now to speak about the quadrangle, the iron quadrangle in Minas Gerais, we're going to receive Paulo Rodrigues to talk a little bit about how the climate change has affected the local communities that live around the iron quadrangle. Paulo, welcome. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Bruno. I really thank you for receiving me here. And also I thank Edumite. It's an honor to be here. And this is a great opportunity for me to talk a little bit about some aspects that are not really known on this area of mining and inside and outside of it. So I'm going to share my screen here with the audience, and then you can see my speech here is gonna be related to the maps. I'm not gonna bother you with some technical language because it's a little complex, this topic, but I'm gonna talk about water resources and especially the underwaters in the quadrangle. So the theme of my speech today is the water and mining insecurity and the case of the iron and water quadrangle in Minas Gerais. So this is me, Paulo Rodrigues. I'm a geologist from University of Rio de Janeiro. I have a PhD on Johannes Gutenberg in Germany, and I'm also a researcher and professor of the post-graduation course in science and technology in radiations, mining, and materials on the Development Center of Nuclear Technology in the city of Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais. So some basic concepts, including really the title of my speech, what is water insecurity? So insecurity is the opposite of security. So the lack of water security is the right, so the right of populations to have access to water in quality and with enough quantity to supply their necessities, mining, I have to call the attention here for the concept here, which is the activity of an extractivist model. Yeah, mining is not an industry. So the mining has appropriated itself from the goods, the mining and geological goods. So this concept have some benefits. For example, the ley Clégy, which says that mining is not an industrial activity, so the mining would have another different approach here. So mining is an extractivist activity of geological and mining goods with an economic value, which is the minery. So to talk about a little bit about water and the cycle of water in the quadrangle, we have to talk a little bit about the water cycle in the planet. So in a very quick way, we can observe here on this image, we can see the water cycle, which is the path that the water flow in a way that we human beings can participate on this cycle in a period, and this cycle, it returns to the beginning. So as an educational purpose here, we're going to talk a little bit about this cycle starting on the oceans. So the oceans are the most important source of waters of this cycle. And that's how this water cycle is possible. So you can see these blue arrows. So from the oceans, there is an evaporation, a considerable evaporation, and this water, as in this state, it goes inside through climate change and physical states, chemical physical states, and changing temperature. It condensates and it gets down in the form, in a way, of rain, and this precipitation, it falls in regions, in mountain regions and in plain regions. So in an important way, we can highlight that part of these waters that go on the territories, they can follow two basic paths, or it flows on the top of the land, or it penetrates, goes into the underland, the undersoil. So these are the two paths that can offer the sub-cycles of the water. And they are so different, they have so many different characteristics, and that we don't have idea. We as human beings, we can have access only the superficial, the land cycle, because there are no human beings living under the earth, under the land. So we don't see them, but not because of that, we cannot think that they are important. So when they go into the land, they will follow this path
So oceans are responsible for 97% of the water in our planet. The atmosphere, with very little traces of 0.01%. Ice is responsible for another very little quantity, 1.81%. Lakes and rivers, again, with less than 1%. Soil moist, less than 1%. And we have also the subterranean waters. So really, it is the ocean that is responsible for most of it. It is interesting if we notice the amount of surface water with the amount of subterranean waters that we have over continents. We have a magic number here. So we can see that there is 40 times more water underneath the surface than we have over the surface. So when we human beings, we look at a lake or a river, we have to remember this number. What we see is only 1/40 parts of what we have available of water supply inland. And really, it is the subterranean waters or the waters underneath that make life in our continents possible. So all the water inland comes initially from rain, from precipitation. There is 40 times more water underneath the soil at subterranean level than there is over the surface. So when we have too much water under the soil, by some process of equilibrium, some water will be sent to the surface. And this is what our water reserve does. That's how it regulates itself, by holding a lot more water under the soil than over it. And we will see this in the next few slides with more details. So what is water stress and how do we see that? What we see first is for the surface water to start becoming scarce. And this is a very, it's a warning sign that underneath the soil, the subterranean waters are also under stress. So what we can conclude from all this is that aquifers are a lot more responsible for water security, and aquifers are obviously relate to the subterranean reserves of water. And they are much more responsible for water security than rivers and surface water. But this surface water acts as a warning gauge to us on the surface. So if there's any stress underneath, this is also felt on the surface. We will also now give some names to some of these elements in this process. So the regions that have a greater capacity of letting the water through to the subterranean, we will call zone of water recharge. And where these waters gather, we will call it the zone of water accumulation. And the areas where this water will return to the surface, we will call this the water escape zone. And this happens at very large scale. We have another concept that is very important. As you can see here, the mountaintops are very important places as well, because it is at that place where there will be more capture of rainfall. When rain falls over the mountains, it tends to stay in that location for a lot longer than, say, raindrops that fall over a river, for example. So these are two very different situations for the incidence of rainfall. So we would like it to rain where, preferably where the rainwater would remain. And under Brazilian legislation, mountaintops are under protection. They are under environmental protection. They are officially protected in order to enhance captation and storage of rainwater. So the legislation recognizes that and make these areas especially protected. All these areas that we can see here as or ecosystems. So, for example, water springs and mountaintops are automatically protected by our forest code under federal law. And these are what we were saying were the renewable water zones. And also, if we see at the bottom of the diagram, we can see that the zones for the exit of the water from the subterranean onto the surface is also protected. And for that reason, in theory, by law, we would have the whole cycle of the water capture, a natural water capture, transport, and its return to the surface would automatically be protected by law. Something very important I mentioned right at the top of our conversation is that, as you can see here, you can see a very particular event. There is in Minas Gerais a saying that goes like fire up the mountain and like water running down the mountain. But subterranean waters act differently. They have a different behavior. They actually go up the hill, for reasons that I cannot really describe here. But this is what happens. So this subterranean waters will go back into the water cycle through the river basins, tributaries or bigger rivers, but also from the bottom of the river up, the subterranean waters will kind of bubble from the bottom of the rivers and resurface. And this is very important for volume rivers everywhere. So this all happens in an invisible manner, or at least invisible to us, of water to become surface water again through the river bottoms up. As our title says, of the iron ore quadrangle, we have here the state of Minas Gerais in Brazil. Just to call your attention, Paulo, is 15 minutes. So I just wanted to say that Minas Gerais is a little bit bigger than France. And these are very complex studies because it's such a big area for us to survey. So we have here the iron ore quadrangle, mostly encased in the vale surrounded by mountains. We have here the capital, Belo Horizonte. And we have the 4 most important hydro basins in the state. And you can see in the map where the water is or the reuptake of water happens. And that coincides, as we explained before, with the top of the mountains. And this is very fortunate indeed. So we can safely say that the sorry, just to warn you that your slide is not going forwards. And I was saying that the iron quadrangle coincides with the area of the water quadrangle or the aquifers quadrangle in our state. I will stop this the screen sharing and restart it. Let me see, where was I? Just a moment. I am finding the slide here. Can you see that? No, we can't. So we are here in the English channel waiting for the speaker to get the slide or his screen share working again.
Okay, so let's see. 2 or 3 slides before this one. Yes, this one. From there. Yeah, now you can see, right? So here again, we have the quadrangle where the mountains are highlighted there in the brown color. So I'm going to talk about the aquifers on the underground and the subterranean waters. And we can see again the quadrangle. And on the right side, you can see the representations of the aquifers, the 4 most important aquifers on the region. And it's really the mirror of the mountains there. So the high top of the hills, you can see the location of the aquifers. And this is not a common and a normal situation. In the iron ore quadrangle, there is an inversion of this scenery where our aquifers is already positioned on the hilltops, which is a zone, a very privileged zone in terms of water resources. So in the iron ore quadrangle, we can find not only iron, but water in this region. That's why you can call it iron and water ore quadrangle. And these are the 2 maps that I've shown yesterday, and the superposition of both of the maps, you can see in blue the waters, and in brown the geological formation on the iron ore quadrangle. So we have powerful aquifers on the hilltops, which is really an exceptionality in the world, in the planet. There is no other region in the planet that I know where aquifers are located in hilltops, as we can see here in the quadrangle, and also in the Espinhaço Mountains, which is located on the north. So we have the paradox of luck, which is the geological layer, which is the most spectacular aquifer of Brazil, which coincides exactly with the most concentrations of mining in the territory. So what is the time scale that we're talking about? If there is the iron mining, obviously the aquifer will also be destroyed. So the consequences of this mining in these aquifers regions, especially here in the iron ore quadrangle, it will take years and even centuries, irreversible situations, and it will certainly be a very strong impact on climate changes. On the other hand, we have the paradox of luck, and also we have the strengthen on this climate changing. So because of this, of the time here, I'm going to just mention that there are many situations that we can call the attention to. The importance that there are areas in the quadrangle, the iron ore quadrangle, that are still untouched. And this is very rare because almost 80% has been impacted by the mining extraction. And there is a national park that was created in this area of Contarela Mountains, but it's not really protecting the subterranean aquifers that we have on the region. So we have the need to acknowledge that the iron ore quadrangle is passing through a critical situation, and that the biggest menace against Minas Gerais and all the region in Minas Gerais is the mining extraction on the aquifers, the subterranean aquifers. So some special acknowledgements here. So I thank the biologist, Dr. Flavio Francis, and all the other people there. And this is the bibliography that I used, and thank you so much. And here are my contacts. Perfect, Paulo, thank you so much. Sorry to rush you in the end of your speech. And really here on YouTube, we have some requests, more time for Rodriguez. So it was just a time to share all the questions and all the information that you had. So there are so many questions for you to answer in the end. And I thought that your speech was really important to highlight the issue of this regional mining, that the industry of mining that have this discourse that if they do something on the base of the mountain, it will not have an impact on the top of the hill, change the reality on this point of view. So in one hand, the taking of these resources, the mining resources, also there's a risk of scarcity, water scarcity, and also on the other hand, the deforestation and the mining. In case of extreme rainfalls, there will be lots of unbalancing on the land, on the climate as well, also in the community around these regions. So thank you so much. So to complete this first round of presentations, I'm gonna invite Dr. José Maria de Rosário, who is talking from Mozambique. In the future, for him, it's already 5:00 p.m. We made a magic here on time, and he's coming here to talk about the reality of the environment, the climate changing environmental observatory. So thank you so much, José Maria, to be here with us. Well, firstly, I would like to say that Mozambique is now 8 p.m. and 10 minutes. So I'm very lucky to talk here from São Paulo. So I'm talking about, I have the benefit to talk from São Paulo, but the people who are in Mozambique, they are in a different time zone here. So first, I'd like to thank the invitation, and I wanted to say that this is not the time that I'm sharing the experiences regarding the climate changing in our nation. And this is a moment for us in a way that we can participate in an event which is more organized. And I congratulate you for the organization, and it's a landmark to us. And this invitation, the purpose for this symposium is for me to talk about the Observatory of Climate Changing and the relation of the climate. Talk about climate changing. I think it's important to talk a little about the history. We are a comprehensive environmental citizenship, which is democratic and gathers in different part of the civil societies in order to improve the climate change in Mozambique and the region. So we understand that we cannot disassociate the local scale and the regional scale or the global scale, because we cannot talk about the climate change in a separate way when we talk about the cases here. And we're going to see this forward when we talk about the role of the observatory and the factors that are related to the climate change. So the creation of the observatory, maybe what was something important, that was the fear that we suffered when we passed through 2 cyclones that showed us mainly, firstly, that different from previous times that we use it to talk about summer, the summertime, we could start to talk about this cyclonic time, because the most common event during the periods of November, December, January, and February is the happening of cyclones. So this I can call the attention, which to us, it can be somehow common to live with these extreme events like cyclones. And this comes particularly, they are coming more and more frequent, not only in scale, but also contributing to the discussion about the climate change and extreme events. In 2019, we have organized the first seminar on climate change. And our purpose was really to discuss a little bit what is the technical and scientific role, and what is the contribution of the researchers and the academics can bring to contribute to the development of this nation. Because at the same time that the debate and the discussion rises more and more, the more Mozambique has the need to have more research and academic information and scientific information related to the theme. And it's a little bit odd that Mozambique, being one of the countries that have a really contributional role on this international, is only clear when we are suffering on the climate change, but there is no space for presenting solutions and collective answers to get answers for these climate changes. So this event was organized with Terra Viva and Umani, with the support of the Embassy of France that opened open itself to discuss about this situation. So it's related to the climate change since COP and Paris COP. So we, from the organization, we had to define really how we would work how we would systematize and on the point of view of the Observatory of Climate Change. So we tried to get environmental monitoring using softwares and field work, and this information tried to contribute with the results of the research that we have made by publishing scientific articles in the magazine that is being prepared by us, and also other articles internationally, and also talking about climate change worldwide. Why is that? Because we don't want to make a lonely work. We want to make a solidary work, a together work, and a work that guide the observatory work, and that can have the partnership and the collaboration of other communities and other people who are affected by this climate change. And here you can see the methodology of the observatory. Scientific research and environment, education, sensibilization, and environment advocacy, organization of scientific events, development of a scientific magazine, and strategical partnerships with the private sector of investment with a strong impact, with a potential impact, environmental impact of planting trees. So we want to make in the city of Maputo, we want to plant trees in the city of Maputo. So city of Maputo is also called the Acacias city. And when we look at the social development of Maputo, we can see that these trees, the acacias trees, they are not growing as faster as the population. So to guarantee that this name continue with the city of Maputo, so we want to plant 1 million acacias trees. So as an academic and scientific institution, we can look at the causes and we can see how this can affect and affect from the local until the international lands and areas. So we tried to make an analysis here on how we can produce and create information and acknowledgement on the countries where there are basic priorities. How can we have a discussion on climate change with people who doesn't have education, with people who don't have health, or people who are connected to war, or they don't have the basic priorities, the people who doesn't have the basic survival things to get through life. So how can we have a dialogue or discuss this theme with these communities? How we can debate with many sectors about fundamental concepts about climate change without letting the common the common knowledge get into, not being a dominant aspect of the speech. So a global event can affect locally the people from a community, for example. And also the relations that we made about the concepts. So the concepts are there, but not everybody can use and express themselves using these concepts. For example, the concept of mining. So in Mozambique, it's easier to advance in a mining situation than in a mitigation policy. So we have to have clarity on what steps we're going to make in relation to the concepts that we are using on the debates and discussions related to climate change. Another concept, it's about the resilience. And we see many and many times, repeated times, that people use this term in a wrong way. So, for example, we can hear people saying that we have to construct, to build infrastructure that are resilient. So we can observe that the infrastructure by itself cannot get into resilience. So the infrastructure is a systemic element to advance into resilience. So the infrastructure by itself can be safe and resilient, and other elements can be added to them, so we can advance to a resilient system. So we can discuss the resiliency of a city where we have safe and resistant infrastructures. But in order for us to advance, we need to have knowledge. We need to have capacity to answer the events when they are happening. So I don't know if you remember about this big hole that appeared in Japan, and in 3 days, this hole was closed, and the city that this hole appeared became normal in 3 days. So what we can see there is a technological capacity to support the resilience of that city. It was needed lots of people, lots of knowledge, and especially financial support, so this ecosystem could be developed and improved. And this is what we want to contribute regarding some concepts linked with our project. So we have 1 million of animal species and plant species that are under menace of extinction. This is what we see on global scale and local scale. What does it mean to have this extinction of this species? What local consequences happens in the local communities, the fishermen, for example. So from a global point of view, we lose small elements, but elementary elements to talk about and to discuss, to face the advocacy, the climate advocacy, to create knowledge so people can relate with the climate change. So one of the elements that we believe as an observatory is the lack of a place to speak. And I don't know if it was a coincidence, but what is happening in Egypt now is the COP. So I ask you, how many people who suffers from climate change is there on COP? It looks like it's a it's a joke to make this question, but this is an exercise that the observatory could make to observe the attendance of these people on. So to ask UN, who was there, who attended this, were the people who suffered the most, the children, the women, the elderly, people who are unable to be there because they are affected by the climate change. Were they there? I believe that we are very worried about the events, and we're not really worried about between the events. And today I could see what the media could speak about the COP. So it's the same speak about all the poorest country. They don't have the resources to make anything about the climate change. And this is an old speech. So this is something that we have to change, not only in global events, but to be present on these events and to guarantee that the affected people are the ones who are talking about the situations. We have to not only worry on how the COPs are being organized, but what happens between them. So the topics and the themes that will be spoken in the COP next year are not the same as the one that happened this year. And why I'm saying that? Because the events, they affect differently and different people. The same event, the same event didn't affect this one family and the other the same way, because there are some families that had the conditions to leave the town, but when the event was communicated, there were some families that could leave the town and some they couldn't, and these who stayed there, they had no water, they had no sanitary goods, and they couldn't have activities linked to what they had before. And also children and parents and families whose parents that died from HIV. And there are some families still in Mozambique that were structured in this situation because their parents died from HIV. So this event will not affect the same way this specific family. So there are some families still in Mozambique that are different, and we have to discuss, and we have to find ways so we can talk about the adaptation. How can we produce information and knowledge for the audience, for the public, in order to face these problems, and also the knowledge to map the events that are happening worldwide. And we, as an observatory, we are part of a collective that is guided by the citizenship science, and we're not only worried about the contribution of knowledge, but also how can people can be placed to face these problems as well. So this can allow us to elevate the place of the communities that are affected by these events. So that's why we were invited to give our point of view, our opinion on environmental migration. And we were invited to the community, a panel of a community that live in South Africa, in the shore of the rivers, who discuss climate change. And we are constantly invited in Mozambique to help build a local place to talk about climate change. So this helps us to understand better the diversity, the type of impacts, and the intensity of events in the life of each one. And we can create mechanisms of being together and to verify on other methodologies lived in the community. So we are writing a research that has the goal to map the shore, the animals on the shore. So I don't know if you know that Mozambique has one of the biggest natural gas basins, and this is starting to be explored, and how this exploration is going to be started and how it will be made. We cannot answer these questions without having before the mapping of what is the ocean ecosystem and the shore ecosystem, without knowing before about the scientific research that will be impacted with this extraction. So it's important to organize ourselves so we can advance and have this data, this information, so later we can see what we have to modify it if it's needed. So I want to invite you to think about it together, and we're going to be very grateful if we have the collaboration of all of you. So how can we continue this work? We can collaborate with each other. We believe in collaboration. The world can only develop itself if we can collaborate with them, with each other. We take care of the world, and the world take care of us. It's like a dialectical situation, relation. The way that we're going to treat the planet is the same way that the planet will give us the possibilities to treat us the same way. So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much for your talk. I think it is very important to have the perspective of Africa and Mozambique. Even though we are very close, we have different view stands on the matters that really matter to us. It's already 6:30, so I'm going to open to questions. And I would like you, the panelists, to, when you answer the question, to make your final considerations, because we are going to go over time. So there's lots of questions, and whoever feels most comfortable to answer, please do so. Is there a way, a more sustainable way of mining the metals that we need? And this question is open to all. Another question or two, actually, regarding COP27 and how much indigenous people are participating in that talk. How do you see the contribution of indigenous people to this COP27? And another question concerns the new government, the incoming Lula government, and how does that impact on the issues for indigenous people? Besides that question about more sustainable ways of mining metals, what do you know in your studies about the position of Brazil in regards to the rest of Latin America? How do we rate in comparison to these countries? So, Paulo, you were one of the people that received the most questions. You have, in fact, already answered some via our chat. And we have several questions. So, for example, is there any biography on the water cycle? Or maybe you can give us your email for further information. And there's another question here, but it's I'm not clear whether he's talking about carbon or not. So maybe we can get clarification on that. Also for Jose Maria, we have a question. Is there a COP ever going to take place in Africa? And one of the things that you spoke about that were very important is about the change in perspective in the Mozambican context, to start a movement towards adaptation of climate change, because it all seems so far away, it doesn't actually seem real. People are suffering, but it all seems too far in the future. How is that happening in Mozambique? These are some of the questions, and I'll go back to Mauricio now. Well, I'm going to try to answer the questions. And some of them are so very important. The first, for example, what is the most sustainable way of mining? There are some studies which were made by the indigenous people talking spiritually. On a spiritual level, we don't just go and get something going. So, for example, if you don't like someone messing around with your things, so this is the same. The minerals that are inside or underneath us are there to promote an equilibrium in each one of these elements, earth and animals and minerals and rivers. They all there for a reason. So they mustn't be messed about without a meaning. But if there is a talk, if there's a talk among people who actually know about these spiritual matters, this would be very advantageous to all of us. And we perhaps could come to some solution about mining that would agree with our way of life, of indigenous people, that is. In regards to the COP and, for example, the Paris Agreement, where some questions were made about climate change, and also the Glasgow COP, I think that was one of the most important COPs. Many indigenous people today are having a position of actually dialoguing, maintaining talks with heads of states. There was even an indigenous person making an official start to COP26, and that is a very important recognition to indigenous people, a recognition of how important they are in mitigating and contributing to tackling climate change. There was a talk in the COP of directing funds to peoples in the forest who defend the forest and that way protect the environment and indirectly tackle climate change. I don't know what's happening at this COP presently. I don't, but I think it's very important to have a representative from the Amazon. This is what I think about this question about COP. And these days we have the spaces open for us so we can talk about our rights. It's not just the government talking for us or FUNAI. It's not for the government to talk for us. It doesn't make sense. We are now gaining our own voice to talk about the issues that matter to the indigenous people of Brazil. Bolsonaro was a disastrous administration of devastation, forest devastation. He fulfilled his promise of not demarcation a single mile of land. Our struggle is to keep the forest standing, pristine. Deforestation is not going to bring benefits to anyone. What we expect from the new, from President-elect Lula is that he fulfills his campaign promises, all the promises he made to indigenous people, to invest in the guard and policing of the forest. We need funds to make agents available to protect our land. And also another promise was the demarcation. Because at the moment our territory looks a bit like the Gaza Strip, people being killed, our leaders being killed for territorial reasons. I don't stay in Boa Vista for reasons that I am scared. There are many parties, many stakeholders that would prefer me not to be there. And I have to be very careful, nearly to the point of disguise, because of other parties that may pose some kind of a threat by trying to guarantee their own interests. This has been excellent, this symposium. To hear other people and other views is like having a lesson. We have this knowledge, but we are not able to explain or make this knowledge available to society. And I truly believe that the issue of mining is, we need to let the population know clearly what it involves. People are not aware of what's happening and all the damage that is being done here. So we even heard that this is nature's revenge on man for what man is doing to nature. I am just very grateful to be able to attend this event, and I am so very glad to participate in these events. Thank you. The last word, the last words of this meeting, I will call his own sister who is here and to speak in their own language. Oh, thank you. The English channel is now back as we have stopped listening to the indigenous language between the brother and sister there. Thank you very much, Mauricio, Bruno says. And we wish you all the best in your struggle to keep the forest. I am so sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. I will have to leave as I have been invited to speak at my son's school. So I will have to leave in a minute. I apologize to everyone involved. Is that okay? I'm sure we'll be okay with you going to your son's school. And I think it's a question of priority. You must go. So I'm going to start answering a question that is on the chat. Which is how to participate, how to make a difference. So I think that we must pay attention to how we can get solutions for different places and people and things that will actually make a difference for communities. And this is what we're doing now, is to get together and work together. We have to be clear, though. We mustn't just speak to those who suffer. We must take that suffering and those experiences and take it to people who can make a difference, to people that have some power. We need to advocate and be active. And we mustn't close the door to those who actually make us suffer or cause that suffering. Those who are suffering don't have the means to go and speak to those in power who are actually causing pain, but we do. We in academia, we have a voice, and we can make these people heard. We can make people who are suffering have a voice. Mauricio said, and I agree, that there is an increase in the indigenous people's participation in the various COPs in different years. I think that is true, but decisions are still taken by the powerful and the ruling. So I think it's a good thing that the door is open to the indigenous people in COPs, but I think that the equilibrium of power has to change. At a global scale, this has got to change. If we kind of scale these events down to local sizing or to local areas, this will reach everybody. We need local decisions about climate change at local level. So once this is approved by the United Nations, once this fund was approved in COP, in the Paris Agreement, but those who must contribute, we're not even talking about making the money go to people who need it. We're just talking about people who need to pay in. So there is no benefit in sitting around at the COPs discussing and debating if there is no commitments from the people who are supposed to contribute. So the first day of COP, for example, was all being spent in discussing of how to implement what was discussed in Glasgow. The people who suffer, the countries that suffer the most, do not have the funds to tackle climate change. This is not new. So of all this talk about how to do it and how to increase awareness, there's still a need for the countries involved to actually take action. Another question that was posed is how to make such a change. So we must stop talking about climate change measures as something very far away, very far-fetched. All we have to do is to bring the people who suffer the consequences of climate change together. Even today, populations and communities who have been affected have not had the minimum requirements that they need to get back together, to get their things in place. So these events are all good, but we are capable of getting funds together to help these people. And how do we do that? Public policy making, investments, and to have funds in reserve to respond quickly to each event as they happen. Every year, several times, we see in the state tornadoes that go through and devastate, but we hear about it, but next week everything is okay because they have the funds to put measures in place. People don't die from it, and quickly they're back to normal life. And that's what we need to aim for, to be quick in returning to normal life in those communities, those poorer communities. And I believe that's what needs to happen. Once more, I say thank you. It is so good to be here, taking part in this debate. You have my email, and if you have any questions, contact me. Thank you so much, and keep well. Thank you. Now go to your son's school. So I will now give the floor to Ataiji, so he can make his final remarks and maybe answer some questions. Well, first of all, I think we need to understand that the geological era that we are living at the moment is quite tricky, because there are no longer enough natural resources to sustain this capitalist consumerism that we live. This development, so to speak, where a few countries will gather and store all the resources and funds where the rest of the world will simply watch. And we are currently in a state of affairs in which this sum just doesn't add up. So this is not going to work. It is impossible. We are not all going to be able to live to this ideal model that has been put to us, because it's just simply not sustainable. So we need to think about new ways of living, new processes. We need to slow down, although I don't like that term because it feels like development is always going forwards and the past is always going slow. And that is not true. I think we need to learn a new way of living with the resources that we do have, the resources we have today. There's some data that I actually presented here, which is the relation between the resources that we have. Even though our goods are a lot smaller because of technological advances, there is still so much drain on our natural resources in order to do these goods. Say a car, for example. It is taking no less resources than it always did, even though they're much lighter. So let's say we need to stop mining and try to find alternative way. We need to think of alternative ways. If we don't think about this, we will squander our last resources, and that would be it. This model puts us, the Southern Hemisphere, in a very disadvantageous position. Brazil, for example, has no condition of processing those rare materials needed for the transition in order to bank on this advantage that we have. No, we'll have to export it as rare earths, and that brings us no advantage, no financial advantages. So we'll keep the position we currently have. So we need to find a way in which we find a more justifiable. I know it sounds like a dream, but we have to think of a way of a more equitable and a fairer system. I know it sounds like a dream, but I think we can do it. So in some countries, the weight of this mining is is felt a lot more strongly than here. But here still, we are exploiting these minerals without any due care. But this is happening to a larger or lesser scale in every country, particularly in the Southern Hemisphere, where the exploitation of natural resources is more prevalent than exporting goods. So we also must make sure that the states regulatory bodies also take in consideration the needs of the population in these countries of mining, strong mining industries. I want to say thank you so much. It's been a wonderful afternoon, wonderful debates, and lots of new learning happened here. And my materials can be shared with you if you access my site and my email. I have been asked to remind you to please sign the list to indicate your presence today on our chat, so you can get your certificate at the end of the symposium. So Paolo, let's set you a challenge. How quick can you resume your answer? Well, the products, industrial products that were going to be exported in Brazil would not have to pay a local tax. This was a kind of incentive for that to happen. So it is important that we say that mining is not an industry because it does not bring value to the resource, to the crude natural resource, but also it shouldn't be treated as it is a good that is exempt from this tax. So mining has really taken the lift with these goods that are exempt from this tax, but that's not right. I also wanted to talk about the metropolitan area of Belo Horizonte, the capital of our state. If you can, please Google something about the water crisis or drought in English. There are so many videos about water crisis in several different parts of the world, Africa, Europe, China, the United States. There is so much material to be enjoyed and read. Not just academics, but also journalists have written. Talking about carbon sequestration, I'm not from that area, so I'm not an expert. I am not sure they will be able to count on carbon sequestration to compensate for their emissions. So, but experts from biology, from the biology area, would be able to answer this better. And finally, to finish, I will talk about sustainable mining. So the day when mining is based upon honesty and fairness and done with respect to the local people, say, for example, in the indigenous lands, and they respect those people, then it will be sustainable. The greatest problem I see with mining is the lack of respect to people and communities and the surrounding areas around the mines. The extraction activities are not giving the due respect to the localities, the sites, and the peoples that it impacts upon. Mining has to respect and abide by the principles of sustainability. It has to be environmentally friendly, it has to be socially fair, and it has to be sustainable. it has to abide by ethical methods. So it will never be a sustainable activity unless it fulfills all these criteria. So I hope I have answered some of the questions. But I have put here on the chat in Zoom my email if you need to contact me for any further questions. But also, there are some biographical references on my page that you can access by the site of this event that can guide you to further material. Thank you so much for your talk. We have to be quick just for operational reasons. I give the word back to Lucinda now. Thank you so much to all the panelists and to everyone who are here. And I want to invite you to be with us tomorrow, the third day of our symposium. And it's so good that this happened, that Mauricio's sister was here with us. Thank you so much.